Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Howdy, howdy.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
What up?
What's up?
I can't do that. I can't do howdy, howdy, howdy. Like, I feel like it just doesn't rub right for me.
You can say it. You just have to have a little bit of a southern drawl.
Yep.
Just doesn't. I just don't feel like it sounds right for me.
You won't ever know until you try.
Exactly. Just gotta try. Well, hey, what's up? Thanks for joining the tailgate.
That's right.
All you people out there.
That's right.
So, we'll get into our games of the week. We'll talk about the ones from last week. Maybe talk about something else. I don't know. We'll see.
You didn't read the title. All right. To be fair, I picked topics without telling them. So
You really did.
Well,
no, that's good. We didn't really talk about it. So
nope.
Hey,
I was like, well, I guess we're doing this.
let the producer do his thing.
Yeah. Yep. The producer. Well, how's everybody doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh, just dandy.
I feel like I have a good high and then I have a bad high, just because how certain games kind of played out. I was just.
Oh, okay.
So you're always high. You just
Okay.
I'm not. If I'm not in Colorado. I'm in Tennessee.
It's true.
So it definitely can't be.
Well, I mean, it's medicinal over there. It's legal. So, I mean,
My back hurts.
I got the pain, doctor.
Yeah, no, we had quite a few shakeups week 11, especially in the top 10. There was a few top 10 teams and some undefeated teams that fell. It was glorious.
They fell hard. Unfortunately, Oregon was not one of them.
No.
The Ducks handled Maryland. Ohio State handled Purdue.
I hope so with that one.
Yeah, me too. But
y'all were a little sneaky about that. I'm not gonna lie. Beat them by like an extra touchdown than what Oregon did.
Well, we've got to start making our case.
Yeah, they gotta work on their style points because the Big Ten is so lopsided. I mean, so top.
We got 3 of the top 4.
Just saying. And then the rest of your teams are not ranked.
We don't have to talk about that part.
Well, I mean, when over half of the team is ranked.
That's exactly word. Unless you have FSU, then that's.
But and then we had other teams like Georgia, who wasn't undefeated, but they kind of were ranked like they were undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
They fell in a miserable fashion to Ole Miss.
That was pathetic.
It was a rough game for them. Now, granted, I get it. It was raining. Like there was some of that, and when Georgia, who has had trouble with the run game in the past, they've been having trouble just establishing a run game. When they still can't do that, and they definitely can't lean on the pass, which is what they've been doing all year because of the rain, then you become a lot more one-dimensional, and they basically were zero-dimensional because they.
You know who else had to deal with the rain?
Ole
Miss.
It's true.
Ole Miss had to deal with the rain.
The things are like when you have a quarterback like Beck trying to throw in the rain, like it's harder. You're going to throw a lot more completions to the other team.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I mean, remember that.
You would think that he'd be able to see more of the field, though.
Sure.
Spread out he is.
So that's understandable. I get it. I understand that Ole Miss also had to deal with it. That Carson Beck with his amazing peripheral vision, and it's just that particular game. It was bittersweet for me as a Tennessee fan, and we'll get to that later. Why? But it's still. I mean, it was a great showing by Ole Miss. They wrote the playbook basically on how to handle Georgia, because this wasn't like the Georgia Alabama game where it was like Alabama looked lights out crazy and then had zero defense in the second half.
Right.
This was Ole Miss staying consistent all game long, which is weird for them because they have not been as consistent all year long. So, but the other really big upset that I'm just heartbroken over was just Miami falling.
Yeah.
How
Good old Georgia Tech.
good old Georgia Tech beating up on them
Cool.
Florida teams.
Mm-hmm.
How dare he?
Yeah, handed Florida State their first loss of the season.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, they have 2 top 10 wins.
Yeah.
It's the
I
state.
mean, I'm just.
Well,
I mean, it's Georgia
yeah.
Tech for real. I know it's the middle of November, and they got a few losses, but
Keep stacking the wins.
Yep.
if you run over 200 yards on a Florida team, good chance you're going to win.
Yep.
Yeah, and I just think it goes to show. I mean, we've talked all year. Obviously, I have Miami as my ACC champion. Yeah, ACC champion. I don't know why that sounded weird.
You okay?
Yeah.
You need to repeat yourself. I really picked Miami.
I think the dementia is setting in already. But like I have them winning the ACC, but they haven't done much. They haven't done much to prove to me that they are a true top 4 team. Sure. And they haven't really played anybody. Yes, they've been winning big. Cam Ward has thrown for 300 plus yards, however many times, and so many touchdowns, Heisman favorite. But I think they finally just kind of got punched in the face. And
they didn't get no help from the refs either.
They didn't get any help, but they have gotten help from the refs in past games. There have been many times that the refs have.
Big thing too.
Saved them.
I want to say they also got calls for a targeting call this time.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit surprised. I'm like, oh wow, they're actually gonna call it this time. They reviewed it and everything. I was like, no, it's like they're gonna change it.
Yeah, they're gonna change. After review, we're gonna call targeting on Georgia Tech.
They're changing the rules of what targeting actually is. Yeah. Actually, according to the NCAA,
if we're in the East Coast, this is targeting. In the West Coast, not so much.
The Georgia Tech player moved his helmet into the line. But yeah, it's so we'll see. We'll see how they respond from this. I still think they're a good team. I still think they're going to win the ACC. Just don't know how that's going to translate to the playoff and what they're going to look like. So,
yeah, that's true. That's true. I think any team they play that has a defense, they're going to be in trouble. Because their defense can't stop somebody. And
if they have a team that can run the ball, like Georgia Tech, just play keep away. The fact that they only scored 28 points to beat an explosive offense like them is crazy.
Yeah. They held them.
Have a good secondary. Good secondary. Run the ball. That's it. Like you do that, you stop them, you're good.
Yep. So, other notable games from this weekend. Was there any ones that you guys were in particular just intrigued with, or we talked a little bit before we hopped on here that the South Carolina Vanderbilt game I was surprised about. Just surprised that it was as lopsided as it was. Michael, you mentioned that I think it was last week, maybe even multiple times this year, that you were just waiting for Vanderbilt to kind of run out of gas. Like, they're a smaller team. They've had some big wins, some really, the Texas loss, even though for Vanderbilt, that's a win, losing to Texas by 3. But I think this was when we saw them just kind of run out of gas.
I think you also have to kind of point out though too, Diego Pavia had to play twice. He had to play South Carolina and the NCAA.
Yeah,
his attention was split, unfortunately. Yeah. He lost the boat.
I understand him opening up the case now, because obviously you don't want to wait until you basically can't do anything anymore, until where the courts can't step in. So you don't want to wait too long. But I'm like, I've got a feeling you guys aren't going to be preparing for the playoffs. So instead, probably should wait until at least after the regular season. Right. To file your lawsuit. You file your injunction to allow them to let you play an additional year. I personally think he's played 6 years. He needs to not play anymore. I get it. Close your ears, Cam Rising.
Close
know.
your
I know.
earmuffs, Cam Rising.
Well, it's just like we need to get
Cam
rid
Rising's
of.
probably laughing. He's like, "Ha ha! You should have followed my footsteps. This is how you do it."
Well, yeah, I mean, like you've got some of Miami's best players are been playing for 9 years.
They're-
Like
are
But that tight end is on his
46.
ninth year. Like,
Their sons are going to come into this team next
Exactly.
year.
exactly. And so I'm just like, you got to put it into it somehow. I haven't heard, whether or not he has any real legal precedent. But I mean, possible.
I mean,
I
Vanderbilt probably didn't want to because, hey, like we need this guy to play.
Right.
So they're
Sure.
like, we're gonna help him out. So
Yeah.
he helped
Well,
us out,
you
let's
know-
help him out.
Vanderbilt is taking his case to like the law school, Vanderbilt Law School,
Sure.
just like, hey guys, here's your next assignment. Figure out how we get him for another year.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
find the loopholes.
it's possible there is one. Like that's the thing is
Yeah.
I just haven't heard anything of precedent, with junior college stuff.
He
So,
played, I think 2 years of junior college, and then he went to like a military academy, I think, or something like that. And then so just the past 3 years, he's technically played in at least D1.
Mhm.
yeah.
Which
Well,
if they
and
can find a loophole around it, by all means,
Mm.
like I'll be curious about it. He's actually
Yeah.
one of the players I would actually like to see still play.
Mhm.
well, 'cause, the arguments that I've heard is like let him play another year because there's no way he's going to the NFL. He's
Yeah.
too small.
Well,
And I can understand that argument. I mean, Bryce Young is currently in the NFL, and he's according to what 6'3", 5'10".
with heels.
Depending on which, like
Yeah,
what he's
which
standing
metric-
on and everything.
So, but it's just like Pavia, I get like that argument too, but at the same time, it's just one of those things. If he has played the amount of years that's allotted to him, then he's done. The thing is, the other part of this is Vanderbilt didn't just get Diego Pavia; they also got New Mexico State's offensive coordinator.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why
Yeah.
Pavia immediately started clicking was because he already knew the playbook.
Mhm.
And so actually I heard supposedly that the offensive coordinator actually got a divorce to take the job at Vanderbilt. His wife told him that if he took, or his ex-wife told him that if he was going to take that job, then she was going to divorce him because she was tired of moving and she was done with it. And he was supposed to retire and blah, blah, blah. So that's what I've heard from pretty legit sources. So,
That's crazy.
you comment below whether or not you think that is a good response, something you should do.
Well,
I
I
feel like
think-
if you
I
know
think-
you're marrying a person in that field,
Right.
you should already know that's a very strong.
I would put money on that there were some deeper seated issues going on, and that just happened to be the
Me
straw
or Diego.
right.
both. And so I don't know. I think that it would be, I mean, it would be good for Vanderbilt if Pavia gets another year. I think it would be also, I don't think Vanderbilt's going to take as big of a step back as people think, as long as that coordinator's there. Because he's done a good job.
The coordinator's done a good job. The head coach has done a good job. What's
Mhm.
going to be interesting now is seeing, is this good? Like, how is this going to help recruiting? Obviously, it's going to be a step in the right direction because Vanderbilt is winning.
It wasn't a
and
fluke game when they played Bama and just got blown out.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. It's like you beat Bama and it's like, oh, fluke. And then they do well against Texas. And, so I'm interested to see just how this is going to happen. Looking in the next 2-3 years, what kind of recruiting classes they're going to get.
Sure.
So
Or
I think it'll be
transfer
fun.
portal too. Like,
Right.
Mhm.
They got a good kicker. Last year's transfer portal. Good punter.
It's true. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
But
but yeah, it was surprising how pitiful Vanderbilt looked. Especially
Speaking of Pitt,
oh,
just
Pitt,
kidding.
we're not going there.
I know it's just
Too early. Way too early. But things that are the
they
Pitts,
lost 2 in a row too.
Yes, true. These weird playoff projections by all of these media personnel that are coming out. And I don't know how many of you guys that you guys have seen or whatnot. But I've just been seeing more and more relatively reputable media people come out with their projected who they think are going to be in the playoffs, so on and so their actual projections. And one, 95% of them don't have Tennessee in there, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah.
But
they
they
expect you guys
also
to go on a losing streak. Then.
well, no, so they expect Tennessee just to lose to Georgia, and that's it. But we're not going to make it in. And they're like, well,
I feel like the only way that doesn't happen if you guys get blown out.
well,
Like
then.
It's still regardless. We still have a head-to-head against Alabama, and we beat Alabama. But they're putting Alabama in. All of them have put Alabama in at 2 losses, and so I'm just like, hold on. And they're like, well, you guys have a loss to Arkansas.
maybe Saban is working like
Bama hasn't lost to Tennessee and Vanderbilt.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, oh, and
you only lost in one state. Like, so you guys gotta remember this.
Let's talk about the other thing is that the one constant that I've seen throughout all of the playoff projections is that Notre Dame is prominently displayed everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you want to talk about a bad loss? They lost at home to a team that currently has a losing record. It's like, yeah, I get Tennessee lost to Arkansas, but Arkansas has a winning record this year. So, and they're on track to potentially have a decent record this year.
Yep.
So it's not as bad of a loss as people make it out to be. It's not as bad as Miami losing to Georgia Tech, who, that's a whole different matter for, but I just have noticed very weird intricacies with the playoff projections and everything like that. And it just seems like there's a lot of weird narratives starting, especially around Indiana and around Notre Dame. And so I'm just curious to see what you guys have seen, what's your thoughts on some of the weird projections you've seen from some of the esteemed colleagues of the media.
I think one of the things that's just weird to me, like you said, I wouldn't say weird. I'd kind of figured that it would happen. Is that, when you have the 4-team playoff, you had a bunch of people who would, everybody's kind of making their predictions at this point. They were even making their predictions for who is going to win and lose the conference championship games, which might project somebody into the playoffs. And that was with four teams. We've got 12 teams now. The conference championships, there's a whole lot more nuance to things. So you do have the ability to go, okay, so Tennessee, maybe they, lose to Georgia. I don't know if that would put them in a conference champion or if they would be able to, but then they get there, they lose, that kicks them out, whatever. There's a lot more kind of flexibility with picks, which means I think that a lot more people are going to do weird things for clicks and to get people to call them idiots and click on their link. I think when you look at it, it's pretty clear cut at this point. Now things obviously can change. I think that based on a lot of the schedules and a lot of the games, like the head-to-heads that are coming up, I don't see a lot of changes happening in that top 10 or top 12, I guess I should say, minus like a big upset somewhere. So, and I'm looking more, Indiana. So in 2 weeks we have Indiana playing Ohio State. That is going to be an interesting game. And for those of you, next week we will have B-Town Bucket Boy, who's our Hoosier rep, coming on. So make sure you kind of join us for that. But like you look at that game, obviously I'm pretty sure Ohio State still is expected to win. But Indiana loses that game. How far are they going to drop? Should they drop that far? Probably no. They're ranked 4 right now, and they lose to a 2. But the other side of that is, are they 5? Okay. They're Indiana. They haven't been up there. So there's going to be a bigger possibility that they're going to have a pretty significant drop. Those are going to be the things that we're just going to have to see how it plays out. I personally just don't see much changing from what we've got right now.
What annoys me about if say when Ohio State and Indiana play and Ohio State wins, what annoys me I've seen just different social medias from just people I work with and everything, and saying that, like, yeah, if Indiana loses, like they should be out entirely, like not even a question mark. I'm like, okay, what if they only lose by like 1 score? He's like, oh no, they suck. you got to leave. I'm like, if they lose by one score, I was like, I'm sorry, they should actually be in there. I get it. They played only one team that was technically like as highly like ranked and as great as Ohio State basically is being seen and everything. But I'm like, to be within one score of a team that's been a favorite to win the Natty, I'm like, you have to include them regardless of what you may feel for the Big Ten or how you may feel about Indiana specifically. Like,
well,
I've seen people, yeah.
I was just saying, if they are one score, if they lose by one score to Ohio State, who lost by 1 point to the number one team, who everybody thinks is the number one team, there's no reason for them to drop. I mean, maybe you want to put them, 6. Okay. That's fine. They lost, but there's no reason to drop them out of the top 12.
No, I would not be personally. I would not be okay with that. I'd be like, yo, then I was playing a lot of favorites right there. Like, I've even seen some people kind of commenting. They're like, hey, like if it's like if Georgia loses to like Tennessee, for example, and they end up still being ranked like how I think the current ranking is like Georgia being 12 and Boise State being 13. They're like, oh, Georgia should be included and Boise State should be out. I'm like, no, Boise State is the Group of 5 team, and I'm sorry, but the way Georgia's been playing, don't get me wrong, they're a great team, or they can beat probably any team given the week, the right train, the right climate, and anything like that, to beat any team in college football. But for a team that's been playing this inconsistent, I'm like, I'd rather have a consistent team that's a Group of 5 team that's been as good as Boise State's been playing than a team with 3-4 losses.
Yeah,
I'm like, regardless if it's SEC or not. Like,
I think you would be hard pressed to, like, if you're looking at a 9-3 Georgia team, Georgia's only good win at that point would be against Texas, which would still be a good win, but it's like they lost to 3 other ranked teams, and so it's just like it would be hard for me to go, hey, you know what, they should totally still be in, because it's not like they just lost by 1 point.
Right.
They lost in sometimes abysmal fashion, and they sometimes looked terrible, and then sometimes they looked good. And, as to your point, they were inconsistent. But I think if they're 9-3, I think that they're kissing their college football playoff hopes goodbye for the year. They'll get a nice little, Citrus Bowl.
Yeah.
Good old Citrus Bowl.
One thing I know, it's a long shot that I've actually seen kind of come up that personally I know it's not going to happen, but it's just one of the things where I'm like, hey, what if, just because it cause chaos. If the chances of obviously of another Group of 5 team making it into the college playoffs is realistically 0. But the fact that Boise continues to win, they could have a chance of getting the bye. So that will leave, if Army keeps playing and they ended up beating Notre Dame and they keep moving through the ranks, that means that they would also be a ranked team and they would also win a group. Possibly even in I feel like they should be in the top 12 at that point. But like, would that include Boise State? Because I doubt they'll keep dropping in rankings if they continue winning, especially if they convincingly win each game. So it's like, to have those 2 teams, it's like definitely a possibility.
Yeah, well, I mean, the parity of, like, if you've got an Army that, let's say Army ends up beating Notre Dame, which is not likely. Let's hope it does happen. That'd be great.
Let's hope.
Because that would mean 2 things. It would mean Notre Dame is definitely out of the playoffs. 100% out of the playoffs.
You're gonna make it number 12. Watch or something.
Yeah,
like, their brand. They're great. Like,
and it is also possible that also could mean that Army will actually overtake Boise State, and Boise State will actually drop, because Boise State doesn't have any top 25 wins. Because Notre Dame's not going to drop out of the top 25, but they'll probably drop to like 20th or whatever, like 20th to 25.
Yeah.
And Army will have a top 25 win, which is pretty impressive for your resume in comparison to Boise State. And Boise State already also has a loss.
But they have a blue field.
Well, it doesn't matter if they got a blue field. They don't have a home field advantage anyways, even if they did win out.
The fact that all the other 11 teams ahead of them also continue winning like without losing as well. I doubt we're not going to see any changes probably of those 11 having any losses.
Well, so again, if we're looking at it, let's say, I mean, you're still going to have teams that are going to have losses ahead of them in the top 12, because you've got Georgia and Tennessee playing this weekend. Again, you've got Notre Dame. If you're in that scenario, you've got Notre Dame losing to Army, and then you have Texas playing Texas A&M at the end of the year. So,
Indiana, Ohio State next week.
Indiana, Ohio State. So there's still a lot of disruption that's going to happen. But to everybody's point, the ones that are already in the top 10 are not likely to drop a ton, even if it is their second loss. They're not. Let's be realistic. I mean, in the sense of like or let's be hypothetical. In the sense of, let's say Indiana goes in and wins against Ohio State, like, which could happen. I don't feel like it's likely, but it could happen. I know Luke is sitting over there trembling. But if that did happen, then Ohio State still wouldn't be out of the top 12 more than likely. It would arguably beg to differ what, like, aside from Penn State, what is their other big win? Mm-hmm. But the argument then is, why is Penn State in the top 10 anyways? Because they have no big wins.
Right.
So there's a little bit of arguably some nepotism with brands going on, which happens every year. But I don't think Ohio State would drop out of the top 10, even with a loss to Indiana. So
I think they'll be like probably at 10 if they were to lose.
Probably
to Indiana, because I feel like no, they shouldn't be out of there, but definitely should be in that lower or that higher half of that.
So they should be losing to Indiana would mean they're below Alabama, who lost to Vanderbilt.
I didn't say out of the top 10. I said within the top 10.
All I'm saying is Alabama right now is, what are they?
Alabama right now in the rankings of 10. Yeah.
So they would move up.
Maybe
and Ohio State would drop to 10.
I didn't say if they would drop it to 10. I just said, like, I'd be okay if they were in that range.
Oh, okay. I thought you said they would drop to like 10. And I was like,
I think if they're in that range, I would be okay with it. But if they're out of it, I feel like no. But if they were like between 6 and 10, again, 10,
I would see that.
Not,
if
like
they lose to Indiana,
I'd be okay with it.
Honestly, like I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Bama does hop over Ohio State, only because of brand.
One thing that I've noticed is that none of the people, like nobody, you mentioned that not many people have Tennessee in there. I don't think I have seen a single one that has Florida State in there.
I wonder why. I mean, they're really calling it. I mean, that's fair. They're calling it. No,
Sorry,
no, you're good. It's a nice little joke throw in there. I think you're probably going to end up seeing a top 10 SMU team if you see that kind of pickup, like or at least at minimum top 12 SMU team. If Ole Miss wins out, they're going to stay in the top 12.
If BYU keeps getting bailed out,
yep, they're gonna. Well, BYU is probably just going to end up winning the Big 12. The argument then becomes, does the Big 12 deserve more than one team? And no, they really don't. Now, here's my personal opinion. If Colorado goes out and blows out all of the rest of the teams they've got, like destroys them, especially this upcoming weekend when they're supposed to play, I think, Utah, which is not likely for them to blow out that team because Utah has a pretty good defense and they've struggled against teams with decent defenses. But let's say they win by 20 or 30 points against Utah. And they're just showing dominance for the rest of the season. I know they're still not playing really. They still really haven't played anybody from a standpoint. They've at least played Power 4 competition. But I'm like, it's hard to say that they don't deserve at least a shot in somewhere in the top 12. It's crazy to say.
I would love to see Colorado. I would love to see them play top 10 talent.
Oh no, I agree.
I would love to see and
I'd love to see them play top 25 talent.
Sure. And that's kind of it's like, I don't want them to get into the playoffs to have to see that, because I don't think that I don't think they're going to do anything impressive.
But just think about this matchup, man. What about Indiana in Colorado. The
Ooh.
Signetti, who's doing what actually Prime promised last year,
Right.
and Prime, and two guys that arguably have big egos, but one has actually proven it really on the field for the past 10 years. And the other one that has just, been really good at, marketing himself like Donald Trump.
Right.
Personally, though,
We
I'd
just
rather
got
have Colorado
canceled.
over
We
BYU.
just got canceled.
I don't care. You keep receipts. Okay. Well, I live in Fort Collins. Come and get me. Come and get me, Dion.
Come after me with your no toes.
Yeah, I can outrun you. I guarantee it. Not Hunter. I can't outrun Hunter. And
He's gonna hunt you.
that's fine.
I mean, I think Indiana, Ohio State.
It's gonna be a very
Texas.
telling game.
I don't like. I can't think of, aside from BYU, I can't think of a top 10 team that they would win against. Maybe Miami.
Maybe. I mean, they again, their defense is Travis Hunter.
I feel like
and so
if it was
it
a
would be-
Miami Colorado game, it would be like whoever has the ball last.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the issue, is that they both have more explosive offenses than they have shutdown defenses.
I feel like
So-
Colorado's defense is slightly better than Miami's, personally.
They've got better playmakers on their defense, but their defense is arguably just as porous.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, they've got great players at specific spots who might make plays, but if you go away from them, I think Miami's got that one. I think it's an edge that's pretty dominant, and so you just go away from him. That's fine.
Tyler Barron.
There you go.
Yeah,
don't Tyler Perry. Yeah, he's in
Tyler
college.
Perry. Tyler. It's pretty great.
Yeah, it's like, just don't throw at Travis Hunter.
Right.
There's ways around it. So, but
yeah,
I would like to see Colorado, just because I would like to see them. And hey, I'd eat my words, but I would love to see them against a top 10 team and just be like, okay, go prove it. Like, you're
I feel like
beating.
it could be BYU. Notre Dame, I feel like even could be the team that they could beat as well.
But
Notre
even those teams,
defense.
yeah. Like, I think like Michael's look there was perfect, because you say like they could beat Notre Dame, and you're like, yeah, they could. I mean, it's not.
They got a better offense than Notre Dame.
It's not a given. Don't get me wrong.
But it's even those you're going, yeah, the right scenario, sure, they could beat them, versus it being like, oh well, they could beat this team. Oh well, they could definitely beat that team. So I don't know.
What I will give Colorado tons of credit for this year and this season is they have consistently punched above their weight class, for sure. So, what's going to happen next year when he's at the Cowboys or at FSU? Who knows?
I give him credit, though. He has not stopped recruiting. Most coaches, you kind of see that kind of fall off in recruiting, but if he doesn't
here's the thing is with recruiting with Dion, he's not recruiting them to Colorado. He's recruiting them to him, because when he goes from Colorado, if he goes to Florida State, he's going to do the same thing that he did when he came to Colorado.
I feel like that's kind of what you have to do now, though, because
100%. And that's
so. But I feel like that's a great advantage that he has as a coach.
Sure, 100%. And I'm not discrediting for it. I'm just saying that that's the reason that he's not stopping recruiting, is because he's recruiting them for him. It's not to a school. It's not to, it's he's recruiting them to follow him.
Yeah. I mean,
it's like a little cult.
Here's the thing, though. This is what I'll say. For the 2025 class, he only has 10 commits right now. That's pretty abysmal. That's bottom of the Big 12.
Especially when you think that you're getting rid of, like, Hunter's going to be gone, Shador's going to be gone.
Yeah, you have to restock at all of your talent positions.
Yeah.
And so you're correct in the sense that he's at least recruiting 10 more people than he recruited last year. But when every single other top team has a minimum usually of 20 plus commits, like especially looking at this top 10, the only outlier is Oregon, which only has 16 commits, which is kind of weird, but they're also a lot of 5 stars. So, so it's not that surprising. But everyone else has probably an average of 24 or 25 commits. So who knows what's going to happen? It's one of those things like I'll give them props that they punched above their weight class. I don't know where Leon's going to be at the end of this season. I think he's being a lot more tight-lipped about it, which is good. I think it helps with the morale of his team. The problem is that it would be better if he was just like, no, I'm staying here. Like being just no holds barred. I'm staying here, and he won't
That's
do
not
that.
him.
No, it's not him. It's
not
like, that's something that Signetti would do. Signetti would be like, no, I'm staying here. Signetti comes across as like a Dan Lanning or, or a Sark or whatnot, where it's just like, no, I'm building something here. Like,
No, I mean, he actually said that he was actually, if he didn't get the offer for Indiana, and if he didn't see like there's something that can be built there, he's actually gone in interviews to say like, yeah, I was actually planning to do the rest of my career here at JMU. He's like,
Sure.
Great foundation, great fan base, and he's like, I can recruit from here.
Yep.
So his plan originally was like, hey, I'm going to stay at JMU. So the fact that, no, you're not wrong about that. So
I mean, again, I think that there's a really high ceiling right now at Indiana as long as he's there. Because it's not even just a recruiting thing. He just clearly knows how to get kids to play
and knows how to coach. Yeah.
He Googled it.
We all Googled it. We Googled him and we're like,
how to take Indiana.
Like, no, we just Googled how to win, and it's just a picture of Kirk.
Right. It's like that. He just pops up like it.
So
no, that was too much smile, Michael. He doesn't smile that much.
I don't think I've ever seen a picture of him smiling or like a video of him smiling.
I saw him smirk at the game on the Indiana Michigan. There was one towards the end when they got the first down that helped him run out the clock. Like it went to him and he kind of was smirking, and then I think realized like,
I'm smiling.
Get my scalp back.
He did the Kanye West thing, like when people catch him smiling, he's like, nope.
Yep, exactly.
Like the serious face.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's move on to our games of the week for this upcoming week for week 12. It's crazy that we're in week 12 already.
Yeah.
There's still 3 more weekends of football.
Well, and then
of the regular season.
Postseason.
Yeah.
Of the regular season.
Then we got even more.
Even more.
That was
all right. Who's going first? Dennis, you go first.
But I feel like I was kind of let down at the same time. I was let down basically
from us.
Yeah, like how you guys were kind of be like, even more, 3 more weeks of football, postseason. It just started dwindling down.
Yeah, kind of like your team in the playoffs.
The playoffs haven't started yet, but no, I was gonna say
they always dwindle. They always dwindle down because they never play in the playoffs because you don't have a team.
The fact that playoffs are not really even started yet, I mean, I get it's a common joke, but okay.
You have commitment issues, Dennis.
I do. Just be glad I show up every Tuesday.
Why don't you tell us what your game of the week is? Jeez.
I have commitment issues, Michael. Leave you alone.
I'm getting that. He picks every game of the weekend. It's all his favorite game.
Couldn't decide. Choose BYU versus Utah. I committed to stay within the state of Utah to pick my game. I felt like I was betrayed halfway. BYU ended up somehow winning. I'm going to say somehow, very, very sarcastically. But BYU ended up winning with the last second field goal, 22-21, where if you even saw the last drive, it had about 2-3 tries, and the refs were definitely helping BYU. A holding call that should not be a defensive holding call. I feel like that people were saying, hey, it could have been 50-50. I'm like, no, I really doubt it could have been 50-50. Like if you really saw that, there wasn't much holding there. And then even one of my favorite ones is like when they blew the whistle, I think it was like the second to last, or the play just before that one, the holding call, is they literally went through the entire process of the play, holding right before he's about to get either sacked, throw the ball out of bounds or anything. They're like, wait, hey, he called a timeout about 6 seconds ago. So why did you end up having the play continue? It's not like there was a penalty, an offsides. It was a timeout. Why did you let the play continue? So BYU was able to kind of more or less capitalize on it. I feel like Utah still should have been able to slow them down. We would have stopped them from that last second field goal, but BYU, I guess,
Just
came in clutch with a 44-yard field goal.
Yeah, just happened to win. So, but what's your game of the week for this week?
Well, we didn't talk about games from last
We're
week.
not talking about those because of the fact that they were all garbage games.
I mean, the fact that the way it ended, yeah.
Yeah, they all ended the way we didn't want them to end.
Mine was fine. Indiana won.
Well, it was Indiana. It's Indiana.
They beat Michigan.
Yeah. Well, I get it. They beat Michigan.
They beat Michigan.
LSU got pantsed at home by Alabama.
Okay, there we went through our games of the week.
There we went through our games of the week from week 11. No, so
my game of the week is Clemson versus Pitt. So Pitt's only
okay.
Yeah, they have a 2-game losing streak, and I feel like Pitt is going to have actually a third one. And yeah, as Michael's showing right here, I don't know exactly what I consider this. If it's like, hey, it's Clemson the favorite, even though they're the higher ranked team or the lower ranked team, depending on what verbiage you want to use. But I feel like Pitt is going to continue kind of bottom out now towards this part of the season. I want Clemson to just kind of win out, even though I did have them as my pick to win the ACC, and I want them to win the ACC just because I want Miami to keep losing, and it's just a nice cherry on top of the fact that Luke would be wrong, and I believe Michael even chose Miami.
I did not choose Clemson.
You didn't choose? Okay, then Michael's okay. He's safe. But Luke would be wrong again about choosing the ACC, which I would be totally fine with.
It doesn't happen often, so you know.
Yeah, if you want to make up some tape, then yeah.
I mean, it's gonna be a close game. So
no, I feel like it's gonna be Clemson's game to win here, and hopefully Clemson is able to kind of win out. And I want them to represent the ACC, so I just want to be right about that. But I feel like it's definitely going to be more or less a one-sided game here.
Yeah, I'd say more orange and white teams winning out would be great. Be great for all of the college football playoffs. More orange and white, no red.
I'm pretty sure Miami has orange and white in there.
It's more orange and blue, like green.
I mean, they don't play this week, so
It's true. It's true.
So they can make up some ground.
That's right. All right. So look what you got.
So I've got South Carolina, Missouri, 21-23 matchup there. South Carolina is coming off the big win against Vanderbilt, 28-7. They're on a 3-game winning streak. Obviously, they've not had much success against ranked teams this year, with the exception of beating Texas A&M, which they did in pretty convincing fashion there. I think this is going to be one of those games. Missouri, we have not been very high on all year. I don't think any of us have been. I think they are riding high still from that victory against Ohio State in the offseason last year, and I think that is kind of keeping them. Last year's team is last year's results are kind of keeping them in that top 25, even though I don't know that they deserve it. I see South Carolina. I mean, they're essentially a 70% favorite here.
I was going to say 70 point.
Geez. Yeah, 70%. Yes. I think, what is that, 12-point favorite? I think that they're going to cover that spread pretty easily. I think that this is going to look something more like what they did to Vanderbilt. Either what they did to Vanderbilt or what they did to Texas A&M, one of the two. If Missouri's offense gets going, it is going to be that like 44-20 type deal. But I see it being more of a 28-7, 21-7 type game.
Yep, I totally can see that. I mean,
it's the first time. It's the first time in a long time. It's the first time ever that I'm actually rooting for the Cox.
Fair enough, man.
Isn't it?
I don't root for him very often.
It's fair. I mean, I would agree with you. From a standpoint of like, I don't think Brady Cook's playing again. I think he's still out. So that means they're dealing with Drew Pine, who doesn't know how to throw a ball. Well, actually he does. He learned from Carson Beck how to throw the ball to the other team. But
he's got the peripheral vision.
He doesn't have the peripheral vision of Carson Beck. So that's why it really hurts him. I want to also say Missouri's lead rusher is also hurt right now.
I believe that's right.
So like you're talking, I mean, it's just really not a great matchup. Missouri almost lost to Oklahoma, who has zero offense last week. And they still found a way to put 23 points on the board, which is just, again, you have zero offense. How in the world, like at Missouri, I thought your defense was supposed to be like elite.
What they did, you kind of took a Trump turn there.
Yeah, well, you know,
they're going to be elite.
They're going to be elite, and they turned out to not be elite, and their hands were really tiny. They couldn't catch balls.
My good hand.
Maybe the Gamecocks will show them a thing or two about balls. Just finding a way to get ourselves demonetized completely. But
I love this.
my game of the week is, as we alluded to earlier, is Tennessee versus Georgia. So obviously right now the matchup predictor, it looks a lot like, actually it's less like, but it's still close to what the FPI had for Georgia versus Ole Miss. There was about 70% of a chance that Georgia was going to win that game against Ole Miss, and we saw what happened. Now there's a couple things that are going to be different. One, we're playing, like, Tennessee is going to Athens, which is a big deal. Tennessee hasn't won at night.
Yeah,
Tennessee hasn't
Ohio
won.
State wouldn't know anything about that.
I wish we played night games, man. They keep giving us this big noon games.
In general,
Fox is like kick off.
Wake up, grab your coffee, and watch some football.
Yeah, for me, it's not big noon. It's 10 a.m. and I'm just like, so. But anyways, so this is a night game. It's one of those. Tennessee has had 8 of them this year, or this will be the 8th.
Ohio State's had 8 in like the past 8 years.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's what happens when you do a deal with Fox and CBS. ESPN. But then as a media entity, ESPN knows what they're doing. As a sports analyst company, they're pretty terrible. FPI,
they're good at making money. They're not good at making good calls.
Anyways, this line, the -10, it is very possible that it is nowhere close to that. Like this game to me feels a lot like the Tennessee-Alabama game, where it is a toss-up. It is very much a toss-up. It really depends on which team version of the team shows up. Tennessee is maybe gonna not have their starting quarterback, or they may have their starting quarterback.
You said the same thing about Georgia too.
Well, so I have heard from
my
Georgia,
name, yes.
I have heard that Carson Beck will be playing regardless. That Gunnar Stockton will not be playing unless Carson Beck gets hurt. And that
he might fake that injury. Take it up from
he may season ending. He throws 3 picks, but arguably this is probably the hardest defense that Georgia has played all year. Tennessee's defense matches up in a very disastrous way with Georgia's offense. Where Georgia is weak, Tennessee is very, very strong. And so we saw again, Ole Miss kind of laid out the recipe defensively on how to slow down / stop Georgia's offense. Arguably, Texas may have done that first. Texas did a pretty good job at limiting it, but they didn't get as much pressure on Carson as they needed to.
Say, but hey, Beck, I'm open.
You put him in pressure, and he just crumbles like, I don't know,
like Sid the Sloth.
Sid the Sloth. Anyways, dandelions. So I don't think that it's going to be a 10-point game. I think we could literally be looking at Tennessee wins by 1 point or Georgia wins by 1 point. And just because you just don't know what version of the offense we're going to get on Tennessee, and we really don't know what version of the offense or defense we're going to get on Georgia.
Yeah.
Georgia
total points being 48 points. I feel like it's very optimistic at the same time too.
Yeah, no, the over under is just crazy. Like it's like everyone's saying to bet on the under. And I get that for 2 reasons. One, we don't know what Tennessee's offense is going to do. But then 2, Tennessee's defense hasn't let any team score more than 19 points all season. That's the best in the country. And so like, you can't like, if Tennessee's defense, they probably have some pride in that. They probably don't want to let anybody else get over 19 points. And so if they can hold Georgia to less than 20 points or 19 points in the entire game, Tennessee very easily could still be in the game, or they could just lose by 2 points. I don't know.
Right.
So I'm going to call it Tennessee because I'm a homer, and I'm going to say Tennessee by 1 point. And it's going to be 20-19. I don't know.
Do you want me to make a prediction?
You can make a prediction, sure.
You sure?
Yeah, go for it.
Tennessee by 10.
Okay. I mean, I don't feel confident in that, but I appreciate the fact that you feel confident in that.
Well, I will say if Nico plays, I'm saying Tennessee by 10.
Sure.
If Nico doesn't, Tennessee by 3.
That's fair. I understand.
because they'll start relying on Samson,
and
I think he would have. I think he's going to have a killer game this year or
Sure.
this week.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Gaston Leroy Jenkins Moore may throw some crazy balls out there, and he might throw some interceptions, but he might also throw some deep bombs. Who knows? You never know.
Might throw a deep bomb interception like he did with Ben.
He might throw a deep bomb interception, and then we get a safety for some reason.
right.
Be hilarious. Yeah, I don't know. It again, yeah, it's a pick 'em game. I agree with you, Luke. I think it's just going to be Tennessee by a hair, but you know, I think Tennessee has been preparing for this particular game all season by being really a significantly more ground and pound team than we've ever seen Heupel ever put on the field. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen?
It's a lot at stake, and it's gonna be a dirty game.
There is going to be a lot of stake. And wait, what did you say?
It's gonna be a lot.
I was about to say
a dirty game.
That's making me hungry. There's a lot of steak.
They call it asada.
Not in those states.
Oh, down there. Have you been to Georgia recently, my friend? You know,
I've had much better elsewhere.
Oh, I'm not saying they have good stuff. I'm not saying that.
I would consider the authentic carne asada, not what I've had there.
Sure.
I didn't understand you there.
He just said
the authentic carne
seasoned
asada.
food.
Seasoned food.
We season our food. Salt is a seasoning.
I will say that I won't have a carne asada burrito, but I will have my chicken burrito, my token chicken burrito before the game. That is my current, good luck charm. Huh? I could do carne asada.
I eat spicy food.
You can do pollo salad too,
I'm not that big of a gringo.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Yeah.
His lack of a tan really is, don't let it distract from the fact that he's actually
the top of my head is very tanned.
Because he's outside all the time, right?
That's right.
That's
the top of my head is more tanned than yours.
I don't even know what to say. What can we say without getting ourselves canceled?
Not much now.
Have a good day. Have a good week. That's it.
Yeah. What I can say is thanks for joining tonight's tailgate. Come back next week, grab a drink, and join the conversation.